We're on Tzadik Heya with Beis. We're starting from 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabavo says. Amar Rabavo says, Mali Mikra Kasav, if not for this pasuk, we wouldn't be able to say this. The Gemara is going to say a very weird story right now. And that's why Rabavo says, because it's a weird story. Rabavo says, if not for the pasuk saying this, being Maram is this, we wouldn't be able to say this. The it says, who on that day, Yigalach Hashem Basar Haschira, Hashem will shave with the rented razor, Avrei Nahar on the other side of the Nahar, Melech Asher and the king of Asher, as Haroish, his head, V'sar Haraglaim, and the hair of his legs. V'gam es Hazakim Tisbeh, and also the beard will be taken, will be gone. What's going on over here? It's a weird story. So Gemara says, the Rabbi is explaining, Asa Kuchrichu, the Hashem came, V'idmi Le Kigavra.
He appeared like a person.
He appeared to Sanhedrin like an old person, and that's how the Rashi learns it. The Yad Ramah, he learns that Hashem was mamtzi, an old person, to Sanhedrin. It wasn't Hashem himself. Amar Lei ki azlas the Gavi Malchi Mizrach Ma'iriv. When you go, this is the Gavra Saba said to Sanhedrin, when you go to the kings of the Mizrach and the Ma'iriv, they say, Sinu Livnai v'Kaptasinu, you brought their sons and you killed them. Mai Amarlu, what are you going to tell them? Amar Luhu, it says Amar Luhu, it should be Amar Lei, I believe the Rashash says. Amar Lei, he said to him, the Gillian, it says inside. Amar Lei, the Gillian, it says, Hu Gavra b'hu pachta nami Yosef. I'm taka afraid of the same thing. Ahu Gavra is that person, he means himself, is afraid of the same thing. Amarlei hechi navid. So he says, so Sanhedrin said, what should I do? Amarlei, so the Rebbeinu Shalom or the Rebbeinu Shalom Shliach said, Zil v'shani nafshach, go change yourself. Go in a disguise. So, but my he said, what should I exchange myself with? Amalei zil aisli mispra, go bring me scissors. V'gzayach, and I'll give you a haircut. V'gzayach, and I'll give you a haircut. Where should I bring it? Amalei olahu beis, go to that house. V'aisi, and bring it. As also Sanhedrin went Ashkechinu, and he met Asu Malachi Sharis, and he went and met Malachi Sharis. They looked to him like men, and they were grinding date pits. Amalei Havuli, I think they used to make animal food out of it. Amalei, so he said, Amalahu, he said to them, Havuli Mispra, give me scissors. Amrulay, they said to him, cut one batch of the dates, and we'll give it to you. He did one batch of those date pits, and he gave him scissors. By the time he came back, it was getting dark. Amrulay, so the Gavra Saba, either the Rebbeinu Shalom or the Rebbeinu Shalom Shliach said, Zil Aisi Nura, go bring a fire. Azal Aisi Nura, he went and brought a fire, but how did the Kanafah play? He was blowing it, because bring a fire means you bring a coal, and then you blow it so that the flame should start jumping up. When he was blowing it, the fire lit into his beard. Azal Gazi the Reshe, so then he went and cut off, the Gavra Saba went and cut off his hair, not his hair, not his head. They gave him a haircut, and it says over here V'diknei, but it says on the side in the New Gemara that in the Kisvayad it doesn't say V'diknei, because the whole point, according to how Rashi learns the Gemara, is that he didn't do a zaken, he didn't cut his beard. We're going to see in a minute why. Amru, and they say, Hainu Diksiv, Gam es zaken tisbeh, and that's what it means that the beard will get gathered in. Not that it gets cut because it got burned away, it gets singed away by having the fire catch into it. Amar Papa, the Papa says, this is what people say. If you singe an armai, and it's good for him, then go light his beard on fire, and you're not going to stop. You're not going to stop laughing from him. So It's an expression that apparently people used to say. It doesn't make so much sense to me, but the idea is that if people would say that for the people Armais, people from this nation, if they took a little bit, even if it was bad, they would go take a lot also, like maybe some sort of like self-flagellating thing, some self where they took the punishments well. I don't know exactly what Papa is saying, but something like that. Azal ashkach dafam yitevais denayach. So Sanhedrin went and he found a board from the teva of Nayach.
Right.
Amr said,
Yeah,
he said, "Hainu Elohar Rabba d'Sheis ve'Lenayach." This is the great God that helped, that saved Nayach from the Mabel. So he's bowing to this board. Amr, he said, "Ezal Ugavro Mitzlach." He said to this Avodah Zarah that he just made, if he goes, he Sanhedrin goes and is successful, I'll bring my 2 sons as a carbon in front of you. Shamu b'nai, his sons heard, and they weren't so happy about that. They flew and they killed him. Hainu d'ksiv, that's what the pasuk says. Vayihu mishtach beis nasrach Eloyav. He Sanhedrin was bowing in the base nasrach. Nasrach is lashon neser, which means a board. So he is bowing in the base nasrach Elohav of his avodah zarah. By their melech v'sharatzer, his 2 sons, their melech and sharatzer banav. He called v'cherev geimer. They hit him with cherev and killed him. So now, if you go back all the way on the bottom of Tzadikayim and Beis, 4 lines from the bottom, Rabbi Voa says, let's go look at that pasuk again. The pasuk says, on that day, Yigalach Hashem B'tar Haschira. Hashem will do with the rented razor. Right, Hashem will give a haircut with rented razor because he rented it, because he worked for it. He did the what do you call it? He did the kashaisa. He ground the kashaisa for it. Be'ivrei nahar, on things that normally Rashi explains would be done with a nahar, because grinding was usually done with water power. The Melech Ashur in the king of Ashur, as a Rosh, his head, the Sarah Aglayim, and the flesh, the hair of his feet. We're going to get to that in a second. The gamas hazakin kispet, and also the beard was gathered in, but the beard wasn't cut. The beard was burned off. That's where it was just gathered. Right? That's where the pasuk is machal to. The Marsha says that Rashi explains the entire pasuk, like we just said, except what happened. What's the Sarah Aglayim? That he did the hair of his feet. What's that talking about? So he says he wants to learn it. Rashi wants to learn that's a lashon of hergel, not regel, hergel, something the normal here, which meant over here was trying to disguise himself. So he was talking about the hair on his arms, which apparently was distinctive by him, and he cut it off so that he wouldn't be distinctive. That's how the Marsha learns Sarah Aglayim. Okay, that's the Gemara. Now, since we're talking about Malachim and what Malachim do, we're going to talk about Avram Avinu and his fighting with the 4 Malachim and the 5 Malachim, and the Malach that helped him. Pasuk says, "Ve'echalak aleim laila hu va'avada." Literally means that he fought against them at night, him and his servants. And he hit them and so on. Amar Rav Yechanan, Isa Malach Shemzdam and Laila Avram, the Malach that helped Avram, that was a good year for Avram, Laila Shemai. So Ve'echalak aleim laila means he fought against them with the Malach Laila. Shenemar va'Laila Amar Hoira Gevar. The Laila said, teacher man. But over there it's talking about. So you see from here that Laila is the Malach. However, Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, Rav Yitzchak Nafcha says different shot. Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Amar Sha'as Imay Meis Alayla. He did with the fight against those Malachim, he did the Maisa of Laila. What's a Maisa of Laila? The same thing that we find with Sisra. Shnei, like the pasuk says, Min Shamayim Nilchamu Hakay Chavim Min Misilasim. From the heavens, the stars went out of their paths to fight. Nilchamu and Sisra, they fought with Sisra. So over here also, by Avram Avinu, the stars went out to fight against the kings who were fighting against them. Amrei Shlakish says, Tava de Nafcha b'devar Nafcha. Better the pshat of Nafcha, of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, than Rav Yechanan, because Rav Yechanan was bar Nafcha. Rav Shlakish liked Rav Yitzchak Nafcha's pshat better. Pasuk says, Vayurdef Adam, that when Avraham Avinu was brought to Eliezer, the Yerkes Chanicha, he chased the enemy until dawn. Why until dawn?
Is that a pasuk?
It's a pasuk, yeah.
Where? No.
Yeah. The Yishma Avram Kinishma Achiv, Vayorkes Chanicha Vili de Beis Shmona Asher Shlosh Meis, Vayirdoy Fadan. Okay, so the Gemara says. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Kivan Shabbai Tzaddik Adon." When that Tzaddik Avraham Avinu came to Don, Tashash Koichai, he became weak. Rav and Abraham Shasit Lavan of the Zara B'Dan. He saw that his Einaklach will end up being over of Zara and Don. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, "V'yasam Echad Beisel Echad Nasan B'Dan." By the golden by the Zaras that they made by the Malchi Yisrael, so the Yidden shouldn't go to Beis Hamikdash, to the Mishkan, I think, to Beis Hamikdash, I think. So he put one in Beisel and one in Dan. So that's when Avraham got to Dan, that's why he stopped chasing them, because then he was Tashish Koichai. He got weak. And the Russia Sanhedrin didn't get strong until he got to Dan. From Dan, he was heard the snorting of his horses. So that's where he got a zing of strength because of the Avodah Zarah that was done there years before. Rab Zera, Zakr Zera. Avagav the Shalach, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, it says on the side. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says it sent a message. He sent a message. The Gemara brings down the first part of this in Brachas. So he sent a message that he said, "Hizaru b'zaken sheshakach tamudai." Three things. Be careful with the older person who forgot is learning machmas einsight by force, by the old age. All right, he forgot his learning. The Gemara in Bracha says you have to be careful with kavod of Talmid Chacham. He's not a Talmid Chacham anymore. The Gemara says luchos v'shivra luchos minachs barim. The luchos were in the arim, but the broken pieces of the luchos were also in the arim. Right? You have to still have kavod for a Talmid Chacham sheshakach tamudai.
Right. Another Gemara says, they stay up for a Sefer Torah, not for Talmid Chacham.
Yeah. That there was a Tainon, people named Mechuzer or somebody like that they would do that. Yes. Okay. Shai maybe. Yeah, something like that. I remember such a shpach. Yeah.
Right. But the pasuk also says.
Okay. That was number one. Number two was.
That's what I am today.
Yeah. Okay. Number two is. I just want to say the reason why it says machmas einsai is because the Mishnah Nava says that somebody who's shekeach is Talmud is mischayev b'nafshay. And over there, the Mepharshim say that's when he sits down and the poil tries to forget. Right. So that's what the over here says machmas einsai. Right. Because somebody sits down and tries to forget, he's not a tzaddik, he's not a Talmud anymore. The next thing he said was, be careful with the varidin, Rabbi Yehuda. Varidin was certain blood vessels or something on the side of the neck of an animal, and you needed to cut it, I think, if I remember correctly, so the blood would totally drain from it. So be careful like varidin, like Rabbi Yehuda, he was machmer. And the third thing he said, and this is why we bring it down, be careful with the sons of Ami Aretz, the children of Ami Aretz, because from them Torah will come out.
So the plan is supposed to maybe one Amar, his son will be Talmid Chacham.
So there's a few ways to learn this Gemara. Rashi learns two pshatim. Rashi learns one pshat is that you should be careful with Bnei Ha'aretz that became Talmidei Chachamim to give them kavod because Torah comes out from them, so they already became Talmidei Chachamim. And for example, you see Shmai and Avtayim came from Bnei Sanhedrin. The Gemara is going to list a whole bunch of Talmidei Chachamim who came from Shvacha Yichasim. And then the Gemara is going to say, even so, you have to tell them the following. And the Gemara is going to say what it is in a second. And the second pshat Rashi says is that the Gemara says that Sancherev, the sons of Sancherev, we were talking about the sons of Sancherev who killed Sancherev a minute ago, right? So he's saying this is what you have to tell the Bnei Ha'aretz, that your schus came from your Zaydas. We're going to see in a second. The Gemara is going to get more clear in a minute. So Dr. Gemara, It's the beginning of the sentence on the second medium wide line. This Amr Reb Zer said, Afagav the Shalach Rabbi Shimon Levi. Even though Rabbi Shimon Levi says, and now we're finishing the sentence. Even so, still, Kiham Mil Samaydin Alei. We tell them the following. Tzadikata Hashem, the Pasuk says, the Pasuk in Yirmiyah, You Hashem are Tzadik, Ya'ariv Elecha, because I am going to fight with you. I'll tell you dinim. Why is the way of Rishon successful? And the people who are betrayers, traitors, they are calm and peaceful. You planted them, and their roots go. It stays strong. Gam asu peri. They also had fruit. So, what? No worries. So this is a very funny pasuk. It says that Yirmiyah is having a question to the Rebbeinu Shalom. How is it that Rishon you have a tzaddik? You have a rush of a tovlai. How can you have a rush of a tovlai? Maya hatulai. What did the Rebbeinu Shalom answer to Yirmiyah? So we're on tzaddik vav amud aleph in the wide lines, 3 lines down. Maya hadulai. What did the Rebbeinu Shalom answer to Yirmiyah? He has raglayim ratzah because. He has raglim ratzah because Pashtus means the feet ran, vayaloch and became tired. And how could you go? It's going to make sense in a few minutes. And how can you go and awaken the horses over Eretz Shalom and you're counting on having peaceful land? And how are you going to do in the depths of the Yarden? This pasuk doesn't make any sense just in the Chayish. The Gemara is going to explain. Mashal Adamecha, this is a mashal to person. What?
Even the mashal is hard to understand.
Yeah, but the mashal gets a little bit. But with the mashal, you can go back to the pasuk and see if it makes sense. Mashal Adamecha, it's a mashal to person. Sh'amru said, Yachlani Laretz Kol Parsais Tnei Asusim. I could run 3 parsais in front of horses. In other words, I'll be going faster than the horses. Yeah. And I'm going to be going in the surf. I'll be going in the seashore, but not in the sand, in the water. Right? That's a real...
Like the march.
Yeah. It's a real thing. I read once that JDL, Mayor Kahana, was an interesting person and not somebody who's necessarily a role model for us. But when Mayor Kahana had the JDL, they used to run on the beach. I guess like Brighton Beach maybe. They used to run on the beach. And if you went on the boardwalk, you had to go 3 miles. But if you went barefoot in the sand, you had to only go half a mile, which is so much harder. Okay? So over here we're saying that the guy's not even running in the sand, he's running in the water, right? So he says, I can go faster than horses for 3 parseis, which is a very long distance. Something like that. It's a nice long distance. And the parseis is 10 mil. And I'm going to do it in the waves. Right? Now what happened? Now a regular foot soldier type of guy showed up and Ratz Lefonov Gimel Milim Biavasha Vanilla. And he ran, this guy, this big boaster, ran in front of this other guy. He managed to do it in front of him, but only for 3 milim, and only in the dry land, and he was totally exhausted. 3 milim is much shorter than 3 parseis, and it was dry land, and it wasn't in front of horses, which go faster, it was in front of a guy who goes slower. Right? Amar Lei, so the guy said to, or Amar Lei, they said to the guy, Malafei Raglikach, if in front of a person you were stuck like this, you got tired out, you're all going to go for sure in front of horses you're not going to be successful. And you're totally wiped out after 3 milim, you go 3 parseis, forget about it. And you had such a hard time in the dry land. It's a mashal. When you're going on the dry land like this, when you're going on the surf, in the waves, how much more difficult it will be. You're not going to be successful. So this is the mashal that the Rebbe was saying to Yirmi. Af ata, you also. Uma b'schar arba b'sis shalam t'lois Rasha. For the schar of the 4 steps that I paid back that Rasha, Sharatz Acher Kvoidi, who ran after my covet, Ata Tamiya, you're wondering how you talking to get so much schar? Sanhedrin got so much schar because he was getting so many victories, like the pasuk says. What do you think? How is it that all the bad people, like Sanhedrin, are being successful? Right? So you're wondering about that. I gave him his schar because he did 4 psiyas, 4 steps. Shanim Misham schar Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. I was going to say so. When I pay back the schar to Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sherotzu Levoni Kesusim, they were the superstars. And you're part of the mushal. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to say that Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov were a zillion times better than Sanhedrin, right? You can't even compare, right? What kind of schar will they get? Then you're not going to have a kasha. And that's what the pasuk says, that Yirmiyah said, so my heart is broken, and the Nevi'im, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, what kind of schar will they get? My bones are weak. I was like a drunk person who gave over yayin, like a person who had too much wine and played Hashem, who played Divrei Kachim because of Hashem and because of the words of his holy words. And he was worried. This is what he was worried about. He was worried, what's the schar for Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov? And that's what Rebbe said. Look, you see the schar for Sanhedrin, who did a very little thing. Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov, Hashem's going to take care of them. Correct. Hani down the psila is Kiyas Mahi. What are the 4 steps that we're talking about? The Ksiv the pasuk says, Ve'esahi, at that time, Shalach Meroidach Baladan, Ben Baladan, Melech Babel, Svarim B'Gayim. It says, there was a king. His name was Meroidach Baladan. That's why he's called that. Ben Baladan, his father's name was Baladan. Melech Babel, the king of Babel. Svarim, he sent Svarim, the messages. And the pasuk continues, Umincha and a president, Chizkiyahu to Chizkiyahu. And Chizkiyahu heard, and he heard, because he heard that Chizkiyahu got sick and he got better. The Gemara doesn't understand. Because Chizkiyahu got sick and better, he sent him Svarim. What's going on? Every time a king gets sick, he sends him a present and he gets better? The Gemara explains with the pasuk from Divrei Yamin. The reason why Meroidach Baladan sent this present and the messenger to Chizkiyahu was because there was a meifus, there was a wonder, a nace that happened in the land. What was the story? Rabbi Yechon says, the day that Achaz the king died, the whole day, you know how long it was? 2 hours. Hashem made the sun set fast. Why? Because Hashem didn't want Achaz to have a proper burial and hesped. When Chizkiyahu got sick and got better, Hashem returned those 10 hours back to Chizkiyahu. It seems like the pasuk says, and this is part of the nevuah that Yirmiyah said to Chizkiyahu. I'm going to return the shade of degrees that went down in degrees. You know when you have a sundial, you have a piece of stick that sticks up. So it goes like this, and as the sun goes over here, the shadow over here goes, and it's different marks in the sundial. Each of those marks is a mila, is a darga, a degree. Right? We still call that milas.
4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Exactly. Remember that? They're marked.
Yeah.
So he said, the pasuk says, I'm returning the shade of those degrees so that the hours will hit 10 hours early. That went down when Achaz died. The Shemesh in the sun, Acharan is backwards. Eser milas, 10 hours. Vatashva Shemesh Eser milas Shiyarda. And the sun went back 10 hours from the hours that it lost. In other words, it made up that time. Now, This wasn't just by Chizkiah. This was the whole world, right? Now, Meroidach Bladan and Bladan said, Amar Lahu, he said to his people around him, "My hi, what happened?" They told him Chizkiah Chalash Misbach. The reason why this happened was because Chizkiah got sick and he got better. Amar, he said, there's a person like this, shouldn't I send him shalom? He said, sent to him, shalom l'malka Chizkiah, peace to the king Chizkiah, shalom l'karta Yerushalayim, peace to the city of Yerushalayim, shalom l'karabba, peace to Hashem, the great Hashem. Nebuchadnezzar Safri de Bladen Haba. Nebuchadnezzar was the scribe of Bladen. He wasn't there. Kiyasa, and when he came back, Amar Lahu, they told them, what you write? Amrulay, they told him, this is what we wrote. Amar Lahu, he told them, oh my goodness, you guys really messed up. Because you called him Hashem, the great Hashem, but you put him in the last. El Karaba, great Hashem, right? You put him in the last. You put first Chizkiyahu, then Yerushalayim, then Hashem. You can't do that. This is what the Gemara says that Nebuchadnezzar, that's in Cherev. What we're going to see. We'll see what's in Cherev then. Hold the thought. Amar Elahachik Sudu. This is what you should write. Shlam Lelakaraba. Peace to Hashem. They already sent it. Shlam Lekarta Yerushalayim. Peace to Yerushalayim. Shlam Lemalcha Chizkiah. That's how you should do it. Reverse the order. Amri Lei. They told him. Raina Digarta. They had this Gemara before on that Beis. The person who reads the letter, Yulahavi Pravanka, he should be the shliach to fulfill the message. Ra'at Basrei ran after Kidera'at Arba Psiyos, when he ran 4 steps, Asa Gavriel Va'ikmei. Gavriel came and put him all the way in the front by where the shliach was, so he was able to circumvent the message and give the new message instead. Amar Yechon said, "Mali ba Gavriel." So these, Mali ba Gavriel v'Amidai lo yetakana Sarim Sheisra. If not for the fact that Gavriel came, we would say 2 pshatim in this. Either that Gavriel came, so Minela he only had to take 4 steps, so he only had schar for 4 steps, or you could say because he had such a nace that this happened to him, that took away his chusam. I think the first way is better. But if not for that he would have had more schar, then you would manage to see how much of his chus he had because of this. So for even more, he would have had even more schasim, and Klal Yisrael never would have survived because of it if he would have taken more of the steps. Okay, I said I misspoke. I said before the spoke about Sanhedrin, and then I corrected to Nebuchadnezzar. It's spoke about Nebuchadnezzar. When I was saying how come Nebuchadnezzar had so much success, Yermi was saying how much he had so much success, and the answer is because he was the sefer of Sanhedrin. No, he was the sefer. He was the sefer of Bladan, of Meroidach Bladan and Bladan, and he went and he did 4 steps, and because of those 4 steps, he was so successful against the Yidden. Okay, my Bladan and Bladan. Why was he called the king that at that point Nebuchadnezzar was the secretary of? Why was he called Bladan and Bladan? Amri Bladan Malkahava. There was a king Bladan. Vishtani Ape, his face changed. The Habaki, the Kalba, it became looking like a dog. Have Yosef Breyal Mukhisa. You guess you can't have a dog running your country. He was still alive.
How about today?
So the son went and became went on the throne. When he would write, it's covered for his father who was still alive, he would write Ben Beladan. Even he would add his father's name, Meroidach Beladan. He would add Beladan here, so Ben Beladan. His name was Meroidach, right? But he added in Beladan so that he would have a cover to his father. People would know it's not his father writing, it's him writing. And that's what the pasuk says. Ben Yechaber Av Eved Adonav. This is what the pasuk says that a son is mechabed his father, and Eved, a slave, is mechabed his master. Ben Yechaved Av Hadamor. Ben Yechaved Av, so we just said that Baladan was mechabed his father Baladan. The Eved Adayna, what's the case of, what does it mean that a slave is mechabed his father, his master? See what the pasuk says. The 5th month, the 10th day of the month, to the 19th year of the rule of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Buzaradin, his general, came. He stood in front of the Melech Babel Yerushalayim. By Yisaref as Beis Hashem, he burned the Beis Hamikdash as Beis Hamelech in the house of the king. And in fact, the Gemara, I don't understand. It says that Buzaradin came and he was Amad Lefnei Hamelech. He stood in front of the king. Who was the king? The king was Nebuchadnezzar. Umi Selach Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim. Was Nebuchadnezzar in Yerushalayim? But the pasuk says, the Alu Oisel Melech Babel Revlasa. The pasuk says that they took Tzidkiyahu to the Melech Babel, that's Nebuchadnezzar, that's the Nebuchadnezzar, into Rivlasa. And what's Rivla? Rivla says, Zu Antiochia, this is the city of Antiochia, and the Gemara in Gittin says that Antiochia is outside Eretz Yisrael. So was Nebuchadnezzar in Turkey or in Antiochia, or was he in Yerushalayim? Which one was he? So Gemara says, Rav Chisda Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. It's machlokes shot over here of Rav Chisda and Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, but both of them, either shot would be that the Eved Adonov, that an Eved is mechabed his master. What's the shot? What's the machlokes? That Nebuzaradin had engraved image of Nebuchadnezzar into his chariot. The Chadamar, that Nebuzaradin had an incredible amount of extra respect and fear of Nebuchadnezzar. When it says Lefnei Melech was as if the king was standing there. So either way, you see that an Eved is mechabed his master. Amarava. We're going to talk about the Churban a little bit of the breach of Yerushalayim. Amarava. Rava says, "Ta and Klasmir Kudnaisa Narga the Farsla, the Shalt the Farsla." Nebuzaradin took with him 300 mule loads full of axes, of hammers, hatchets. That are the kind of metal, the Shalt the Farsla, that could break metal. They're especially hardened metal. Shadolei Nebuchadnezzar Nebuzaradin. I'm sorry. Classmate Knais Narga the Farsla Shalt the Farsla Shadolei Nebuchadnezzar Nebuzaradin. Nebuchadnezzar sent these 300 mulefuls of these special hammers to Nebuzaradin. Kulu Balasinu. All the 300 mule loads worth of hammers, one gate in Yerushalayim, that doesn't Rashi says doesn't literally mean it swallowed them, but it broke. It broke against them. Yeah. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, pasuk in Tehillim, Pitucheha yachad b'chashel v'cheilapo yisiyah loimon. Patuchel is lashon yachid. Its door, one door, with the chill and kalipas is the different types of hatchets or hammers would go against. Well, yalom, they would get hit in there. In other words, it would swallow them up. He wanted to go back. In other words, it was Radin. He saw what happened. He said, "I'm giving up." Amar, he said, Mistafina, I'm afraid it shouldn't happen to me what happened to Sanhedrin when whole Sanhedrin's army was killed by the Rebbe Shalom. Nafka Kala, Basko went out to Amr and he said, Shavar bar Shavar, you're a jumper, the son of a jumper, you're a doer. It was a Radin, Shavar, jump, go, keep on going. The time came for the Mikdash to be destroyed and the Heichel to be burned. Pashlei Chad Narga, he still had one of those hatchets left. Also, he came Machia the Kupa, he hit it with the back end. He had a hammer, it's the one side is flat and one side is, right, he hit it with the flat side. Iftach, and it opened the door. Remember, like the pasuk says, Yivada kimevi lamala b'svach eitzar dumais. It'll be known like somebody is brought from above. In other words, it was like brought from Shemayim in the thicket of the wood of the hatchets. In other words, that when the hatchet taka went, it was known that it came from Shemayim, because after all of them broke, one worked. He was killing and going until he reached the Beis Hamikdash, from the outside, from the wall of Yerushalayim, from the gate, until he got to the Beis Hamikdash. Adlik Bei Nura, and when he got to the Beis Hamikdash, he lit a fire in it. The Heichal started to rise. He wanted to go up to Shemayim. From Shemayim they pushed it down. Shnemar gas darach Hashem, like a wine press. Hashem pushed down the B'sulas Bas Yehuda to the Beis Hamikdash, the B'sulas Bas Yehuda. Kazicha daite, so he felt really good about himself. You know, look, I'm winning. I'm beating the Jews over here. Nafka Bas Kala Baskol came out to Amrale and said to him, Amma Katila Katlas, you killed a nation that was killed. In other words, the Gzera already went out before you. It's not you doing this. Hashem made a Gzera that the Yidden should die. Yeah, you've burned a heichal that's already burnt. And kimcha tchina tchinas, you ground flour that was already Oh, let's see what happened. Let's see what happened in the story. Shneimar, like the pasuk says, kichirei chayim v'tachni kamach. Take a mill and grind flour. It doesn't say grind wheat. You're supposed to say grind wheat. That's where you don't grind flour. The flour is what after you grind wheat, you're left with flour. But that's not what the pasuk says. V'tachni kamach, and grind flour. It's already ground. This is the pasuk saying what it was like. Gali tzamasech, your head was uncovered. Chishbi shayvo, your face was uncovered. Gali shayv, here your thigh. Ivri naris, go through the rivers. I think the Gemara is going to talk about it a little more if I remember correctly. But basically, he was saying what kind of Avelas and Tsaros were coming. But you see the one that the Gemara is being going on, it says Tachni Kemach, not Tachni Chitim. Grind flour, not grind wheat. Chitim Loinemar Ela Kemach. It doesn't say Chitim, it says flour. Chazad Dami Dizchari Davakarasach. He was around and saw that the blood of Zechariah was boiling. Back, I think 200-300 years before, Zechariah Navi said in Nevuah, telling the people to do tshuva. They were very upset at him and they killed him in the Beis Hamikdash. We say a kin about it. Kayin v'Navi. Kayin v'Navi. Zechariah was in Kayin and Navi and he was killed in the Beis Hamikdash. I forget the words of the kin, but we say it on Tisha B'Av. Amar Lahu, so the Vizran said, "My hi, what's going on?" Amar Lahu, they said, "No, it's the blood of Karbanis that spilled." Amar Lahu, he's told them, "I see the insi, go bring animals and we'll test it." What? Yeah. I see come the insi and there's there were two Christian pilgrims who went to, I don't remember the details, I looked into it this past Tisha B'Av, who went to Yerushalayim one was in the late 300s, I think, and one was in the 400 or 500s. A long time ago, and they wrote about their experiences. And one of them wrote something that sounds like that he saw the blood of Zechariah. It's a little schwer because the blood of Zechariah was after Churban by his Rishon, and the Christians were after Churban by his Sheni. But still, it's mentioned over there in all the way back, like year 350 or something like that, a long time ago. Amalahu, he told them, I see, let's go and test it. Imadmu kasi, if the shechita looks the same, when it's the same blood, when we go shepherd. Well, over there it said, look, they did goat blood and it looked the same. But over here you see, I'm sorry, let's see if it's the same. Kasi, they shechted, and it wasn't similar, it didn't look the same. Amalahu, he told them, Galuli, tell me what's going on. If not, I'm going to comb your flesh with combs of iron. They told him, "Hi, Kohen of Navi." This was a Kohen and a Navi, Zechariah. The Invi Lehuli Yisrael b'Chavanim Yerushalayim, who said Nevuah to Klal Yisrael about the destruction of Yerushalayim. And they killed him. He told him, I'll go and satisfy him. I see Rabbanan, brought Rabbanan, he killed the Rabbanan, and the blood did on top of the spot, and the blood didn't rest. I see Dardki to be Rav, he brought kids from the Cheder kids, he killed it on top of him, it didn't rest. I see Pir Chikuni, he brought the in-training Payanim, killed them on top of this blood, Adi Katan, the Gemara says, until he cut on it, Tishin Varbar Riboy, 94 10,000, that's 940,000. And it didn't you have to know if it's an exaggeration or not, hopefully it is, but it's a lot of people, the Gemara's point is. You have to really know, really color to know when it's an exaggeration and when it's not. The Gemara is, this is very similar to Gemara and Gittin, and over here, the Gemara and Gittin, some of the friends say that a lot of the numbers that are there in Hanizakin are specifically exaggeration. The first say that over there.
Why exaggerate?
It's sometimes they said numbers. There are certain numbers that were sort of standard, like 13. Sometimes say 13,000 this or 13 this. Sometimes say 60 is a big number. 400 is a number.
So glad that you
right?
haven't heard of animals go through a stomach. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Rabbi Yechanan. The Gemara says Rabbi Yechanan, but yeah.
Exaggeration has to be.
It could very well be. Yeah, could very well be. So the point is, but the Gemara's point is, he killed many thousands of people. Right? It wasn't 900. It was a lot of people. This was bad. Karav Lagabe, he came close to the blood. Amar, he said, Zachariah, I destroyed the best ones of them. Do you want me to? It's good for you. Do you want me to kill them all? Then the blood stopped. Here are tshuva b'daite. He had tshuva, he had hair tshuva. Yes, what happened to him? He had a hair tshuva. Amar, he said, Mahim shloi into el nefesh achas. The Yidden only destroyed one person, Zachariah. Kach, this is the 100 years later, it's still being an einish for them, right? Because he obviously considered all the Yidden that he just killed as part of the einish of Zachariah, because that's why he was trying to be Mephias them. What's going to happen to me if it was Radin? Arak, he went, Shadar Purtisa Levesi, he sent a tzava to his family, big this guy, and he became a ger. See that? Yeah, became a ger. Tanrabanan, the Gemara continues. Naaman ger Taishava, and Naaman was healed by Elisha, if I remember correctly, right from his saras. He did tshuva, became a ger Taishav. He's given ger Taishav means he wasn't a couple of mitzvahs, except not to do avodah zarah. There was a Radin and ger tzedekaya. The Radin was a ger tzedek. The Bnei Banav Shal Sisra, the Enikul Shal Sisra, Limdu Torah Yerushalayim. They learned Torah, or they taught Torah, this Girsa, in Yerushalayim. In the Gemara, there's a Girsa that says, and this is Rabbi Kiva, the Bnei Banav Shal Sanhedrin, the grandchildren of Sanhedrin, Limdu Torah Barab. They taught Torah in Barab in public. Who was that? Shmai Vavtalim. You know, Shmai Vavtalim were Bnei Gerim, right? That means that's where they came from, the lineage of Sanhedrin. The Bnei Banav Shal Haman is the famous one that we know in Purim. Lamdu Torah b'Bnei Brak. They learned Torah in Bnei Brak.
How do you have grandchildren? Those sons killed.
Haman had a lot of kids.
More than 10 or 4?
Yeah. You want to hear a great part of the Megillah? The Gemara says, the pasuk says that he had a lot of kids. The Gemara says that the pasuk says, that Vayisaper Haman Zeresh Ishtu L'chol Oyavav. Haman told Zeresh's wife and all his friends as Kvoid Ashroi Banav, how much wealth he had and how many kids he has. Right? I ask you a question. His wealth. I can understand. People don't know how much money you have. You tell them how wealthy you are. But your sons, okay, your friends maybe say how many kids you have. Your wife, you have to tell how many kids he has. He had a lot of kids without his wife also. Right?
Unbelievable number of kids.
Yeah. So his wife didn't know how many kids he had either, is the point. Right? So the grandsons of the Haman learned Torah in Bnei Brak. And also the Bnei Banav, the grandsons of that Rasha, which I believe is the Nebuchadnezzar. I think Rashi says, 1 second. Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar, the Einichloch of Nebuchadnezzar, Hashem wanted to bring them into the Kanfei Shechina. Amru Malach Yashar Stevnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Malach Yashar said in front of Hashem, Rebbeinu Shalom, Misha Hechrav Speischcha V'Sarfei Seichalecha. The one who destroyed your house and burned your base of Migdash, Tachnas Kanfei Shechina, you'll bring to under the Kanfei Shechina. And it's a little funny thing because the Uzaradin was able to be Megayer, right? But it says that the Bnei Banav of Nebuchadnezzar were not able to. Or maybe they were Megayer but not Tachnas Kanfei Shechina. You have to know what that means. The Ksiv and the Pasuk says this thing that they weren't able, that the Malachim pushed it back. We tried to heal Bavel. Hashem tried to heal Bavel and bring the grandsons of Nebuchadnezzar, but it wasn't healed because the Malachim said no. Ula Amar Zeh Nebuchadnezzar. Ula says this is not Nebuchadnezzar. So that's the first chapter we're saying, that is that any of Nebuchadnezzar want to be Nichnas Kanfei Shechina. Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar, he says different shots. This is the rivers of Bavel, that we healed Bavel, but it didn't heal, that the waters of the rivers of Bavel stayed bitter. The Tirgama did see nicer the Bavlai. And we also said a Targum on this pasuk that it's the the date trees of Bavel that Rashi says because they grew on the rivers of Bavel, so they were growing by bitter water, the dates themselves were not fruitful or bitter. Yeah. Amar Ula says, Amar Moav Shivdei Bishi Yerushalayim Havi. Amar Moav were the bad neighbors of Yerushalayim. This is like, when I was learning this, I was thinking like this is like Egypt and Jordan and so on. Kivin, you'll see why. Kivin Shaminu Levi, become Misnavi, Mistaboilu for one of Yerushalayim. They heard that Nevi'im were saying Nevuot for the Churban of Yerushalayim. They sent a message to Nebuchadnezzar. Look, go out to the south and come to Yerushalayim, come to Eretz Yisrael and conquer it. They said, I'm afraid they shouldn't do like to me, like they did for the previous people who tried unsuccessfully to destroy the Yidden. They sent him a pasuk in Mishlei. It says, they're going to accept the next couple words. It's going to come up a little later. The man is not in his house. And Dr. Gemara vein Ish ala Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ish means HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem, they were basically saying Hashem is not home. Shnever Hashem Ish Mokama. They see that Hashem is called Ish. Shalach Lahu, we told them Vikrivahu, but he's close by. They're going to start davening and Hashem's going to come and beat me up. Va'asi, he'll come. Shalach Lahu, they sent to him Vaiter in the pasuk in Mishlei. Halach B'derech Nerach. No, it's very far away. Shalach Hu, he sent to them, Islu Tzadikim V'orachmi and Maisilei. There are tzaddikim there who will daven and they'll bring their Rebbeinu Shalom back. Shalach Hu, they told him, Sror, Vaiter in the pasuk in Mishlei, Sror HaKesav Lach B'yadai. He took the wallet of money, of silver, in his hand. Vein Kesav al Tzadikim. Kesav is tzaddikim. Shneimar, like the pasuk says, Te'echra li b'chamisha asar kesef v'chemer sayrim v'lesach sayrim. This is the Gemara this is a pasuk. This is a pasuk in Hosea, but the Rashi brings down the Gemara in Chulin explains this Gemara. This pasuk is that Hashem is saying that in the schus of the tzaddikim who are called kesef, and I took out the Yidden from Mitzrayim on Tesvav Nisan. That's Chamesh Asher. That's 15, the 15th of Nisan, and I'm going to have a Chaymer Sarim and a Lesach. Chaymer Sarim is 30 saw, and a Lesach is 15 saw. So he says there's a split in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. There are 45 tzaddikim that on them the world relies on. The Shprach is Arba'am v'chamisha tzaddikim she'elim eskayim aleim. You always heard, and I always heard 36 Lamivav tzaddikim, right? Rashi over here says there are 45. There are 45 tzaddikim that the world doesn't say hidden tzaddikim.
Never generation, right? Never generation.
Yeah, at all times it sounds like. And sometimes you have 30 in Eretz Yisrael and 15 here. In Chutz La'aretz, sometimes you have 15 in Eretz Yisrael and 30 in Bavel, in Chutz La'aretz. So that's the Lesach and the Chaymer Shayim. So that's a side point just to tell you that you see that we call tzaddikim kesef. So they said that there's no more tzaddikim. Hashem took all the tzaddikim away. Shalach Lu, so he sent back to them, how do you receive a tshuva? Fine, there's no tzaddikim. But what will happen? The Rishon will do tshuva. He's a smart man. They'll do tshuva v'rachmi, and they'll daven ma'asulei, and then they'll bring the Rebbeinu Shalom back. Shochlei kvar kavalens man. No, the time was already set. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, liyoim hakesa yavai beisai. The day of covering will come to his house. His house is based on Mikdash. And ein kesa elazman. Kesa is the time. Shnei but kesa liyam chagenu. So he's saying, they're saying to him, Amanamai, we're saying to Sanhedrin, it's time. It's time. I'm sorry, not Sanhedrin, I keep on mixing that up. It said to Nebuchadnezzar, it's time. It was already preordained by the Rebbeinu Shalom that the time for Yerushalayim to fall. Shalach Lu, he sent to them, Sisvu Hava. It's the winter. Vlemetzina, I can't. The Asi Mital going Mitra, because I'm going to come from the snow and the rain. Shalchalei, they told him, Ashina de Tura. Come by the teeth of the mountain. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Shalchu Kar Moishel Eretz. Send the Moishel Eretz, send the messenger to the Moishel Eretz, the Nebuchadnezzar, who was like the king of the world, Misela Midbara El Har Bastian, to go by the rocks in the Midbar to the mountain of Bastian. So in other words, you'll stay under the overlay. I don't know exactly what this means, but they were saying that there's a way to go that's not as bad as the other ones. Shalach Lui sent them Yasina, Leslie Duchta Sivnabe. This is a general, the king, right? He knows an army travels on its stomach. He says, first, I'm not going to be able to take them if the rainy season, it's the winter. He says, I'm not going to have any place for them to live, to stay, while I'm setting up my campaign and besieging the city of Yerushalayim. Shalchalei, they told them, Kvaras Shalahem, Molin Mipaltir Shalach. Their Kvaras are better than your palaces. In other words, go to their Kvaras, which are outside Yerushalayim, and they have, the Kever has the Edens. And the Kvarim very often had a building on top, just like we make a building, like in a mausoleum, like. And also, the caves themselves in the Kvarim, they used to bury people in caves. Right, the caves themselves you can use for shelter. And the pasuk is saying, it brings a pasuk to say that there are kfarim all around Yerushalayim. It's a scary pasuk. The ksiv, like the pasuk says, "Be'esayi in that time, no Hashem, in the name of Hashem, Yitziwas Atzmas Malchi Yehuda, they'll take out the bones of the Malchi Yehuda, Ves'asmas Sarav, the bones of its officers, Ves'asmas HaKoyanim, Ves'asmas HaNaviim, the bones of the Koyanim and the Naviim, Ves'asmas Yesh Yerushalayim, Bikureim, and the bones of the people who live in Yerushalayim from their graves, V'shatchim L'Shemesh L'Ereach L'Chaltzva Shemaim, and spread them on the ground into the open, so that to the sun, the moon, and the stars, Asher Ahavim, that they love them, Asher of them, that they serve them, they worship them as Avodah Zarah, Asher Holcha Achareim, they went after them. So the pasuk is saying that outside Yerushalayim there were a lot of grave areas, and that's where they're saying you'll be settled over there. That brings us to the end. Perfect timing. Bez Hashem will pick it up tomorrow.